So now we've completed all the repetition questions and we'll move on to some exam style questions. So these are more of the questions you'll actually see on the exam, whereas what we did above was just a variety of different possibilities that could happen. Generally the ones in the exam would be easier than the ones we've just done. So I've got some exam style questions that I've made here, and then we're also going to move on to some past exam papers that you might have seen before if you've completed them, just to see what type of questions have popped up in the past. So the first question we've got is x squared minus 6x plus 9, and it's asking us to factorise the quadratic. So here we have a quadratic. It's not a quadratic equation, it's just a quadratic expression because it's not equal to anything. And it's just simply asking us to factorise, so it's not asking for us to find the two values of x. It just wants us to put it into a factorised form. So we'll start off by just rewriting the expression. So if we have x squared minus 6x plus 9 is equal to, and then if we create our little table just under it, our b value is going to equal 6, and our a times c value, which is 1 times 9, is going to equal 9. So we need two things that add together to make minus 6, but then they need to times together to make 9. So since the two values need to times together, they both need to be negative because b is a negative. So if we try minus 1 plus minus 5, which gives us minus 6, and minus 1 times minus 5 equals positive 5, which is not what we wanted. So we'll try minus 2 plus minus 4, which equals minus 6. And minus 2 times minus 4 equals positive 8, so that's not what we wanted. So if we try minus 3 plus minus 3 equals minus 6, and then minus 3 times minus 3 equals positive 9, so that's the one we want. So next we'll set up our brackets, so we have x minus 3 squared, and in this case we don't need to make it equal to 0, it's just asking us to factorise it, and the original equation wasn't equal to 0. So it's okay just to put x squared minus 6x plus 9 is equal to x minus 3 squared, and that will be our final answer. So the next part of the question says set the quadratic equal to 0 and then solve. So what that means is that the quadratic it gave us, so x squared minus 6x plus 9 is now equal to 0. But we've already factorised it, so we don't need to do the work again. We can simply say that x minus 3 squared equal to 0. And now because it's set to 0, we can actually find some values for x that make it equal 0. So this is the type of question that we've just done plenty of. We just need to look inside the bracket and notice there's a minus 3, so the values is going to be positive 3, which means that x is equal to positive 3, and that will be our final answer. So the next question has asked us to factorise x squared minus 81. So the first thing I notice here is that there's no bx term, and our c term is also a squared number, which means that we can square some value and it equal 81. So with these types of questions I can immediately say, right, the answer is 9 and I need to use minus 9 and plus 9, but let's just prove why. So we need b is equal to 0 because we've got no bx term, and then we need a times c to equal minus 81. So remember what this means is we need two values to add together to make 0, and we need the same two values to times together to equal 81. So if we need two values to add together to equal 0, then them two values are going to be the same number apart from one value will be minus. And then if them same two values needs to times together to equal minus 81, there's only one set of values that times together to equal 81 that are the same number, and that's 9. So that means we have minus 9 plus 9 is equal to 0, and minus 9 times 9 is equal to minus 81. But we can recognise that straight away without doing the table because it's the difference of two squares, which means that if the bx term is missing and we have x squared minus some squared number, you can simply just square root that number, so square root c, and that's going to be the value you need, but you need the plus and the minus version. So we have minus 81, so if we square root 81 we get 9, so we know the answer is x minus 9 times x plus 9. And if we were to expand that, we'd get x squared minus 9x plus 9x minus 81. And then the minus 9x and positive 9x cancel out to leave you with x squared minus 81. So the answer to this problem is x squared minus 81 is equal to x minus 9 times x plus 9. So the next question we have x squared minus 8x minus 20, and we're asked to factorise the quadratic. So we'll start off just by making our table. We have b is equal to minus 8, and a times c is equal to 1 times minus 20, which is equal to minus 20. And we're going to start off by doing 1 plus minus 9 is equal to minus 8, and 1 times minus 9 is equal to minus 9, so we don't want that one. 2 plus minus 10 is equal to minus 8, and 2 times minus 10 is equal to minus 20. So this is the one we want. Then if we're to set up our double brackets, we'll have x plus 2 times x minus 10. And if we were to expand this, we'll get x squared plus 2x minus 10x minus 20. And simplify this, we'll get x squared minus 8x minus 20, which is what we had originally. So as our final answer, we have x squared minus 8x minus 20 is equal to x plus 2 times x minus 10. So now in part B, we're asked to set the quadratic equal to 0 and then solve. So we want to set what we had before equal to 0, and then we need to solve the two values of x. So we've got x squared minus 8x minus 20 is now equal to 0. So this means that x plus 2 times x minus 10 is equal to 0. And then the values that make this equation true are going to be x equals minus 2 or x equals positive 10. So next we're going to move on to some past exam questions. So these are the questions that were used in the 2018 and 2017 past paper. So you need to take note of the type of things that have actually shown up in the past. And the first question asks us to solve x squared minus x minus 12 is equal to 0. So we know how to do this one. We can make our table, and b is equal to minus 1 because we have minus x. And then a times c is equal to minus 12. Now we need two things added together that make minus 1, and then the same two things times together to make minus 12. So I'm going to start off with doing 1 plus minus 2 is equal to minus 1, and 1 times minus 2 is equal to minus 2. So that's not what we need. Let's try 2 plus minus 3 equals minus 1. And then 2 times minus 3 equals minus 6, so we don't want that one either. Let's try 3 plus minus 4 is equal to minus 1, so 3 times minus 4 is equal to minus 12, so that's the one we need. So we have x plus 3 times by x minus 4 is equal to 0, which means we can say that x is equal to minus 3 or x is equal to positive 4. The next question asks us to factorise x squared minus 100. So the first thing to notice is there's no bx term, and also we have x squared minus a squared number. So straight away I can say, right, I don't need to do all these workings out. I can say, right, the square root of 100 is 10. So I'm going to end up with x plus 10 times by x minus 10. And then if I check that by expanding the brackets, I have x squared plus 10x minus 10x minus 100, which gives x squared minus 100. So I know that's correct. So the answer for that is x squared minus 100 is equal to x plus 10 times x minus 10. The very last question asks us to circle the expression equivalent to x squared minus 4x minus 12. So basically we need to circle the factorised version of that expression. So if we expand all these brackets, we'll be able to find which one's the correct answer. So we have x times x, which is x squared, minus 4x, minus 8x, plus 32. Now straight away we have a minus 12 as our c value, not a 32, so this one's out. We have x squared plus 3x minus 4x minus 12, so we have our minus 12. 3x minus 4x is minus x, but we need minus 4x, so this one's out. The third one, we have x squared minus 12x plus x minus 12. So we have our minus 12, but we have minus 12 plus x, which is minus 11x, but we need minus 4x. So this one's out. So the last one must be the answer, but let's check. X times x is x squared plus 2x minus 6x minus 12. Simplify that, we have x squared minus 4x minus 12. So the last one is the one we need to circle. So we finally made it through the last question of the video. Remember to give the questions a go yourself so you can practice, but hopefully you've learned some tips and hints on how to approach some of the questions, or maybe a new method on how to answer them. There's also a few useful resources that I've put in the description as well that might help you understanding. Make sure you check out the relevance video, which gives an examples of why you might want to solve quadratic equations.